Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Pastoral Thoughts Podcast. This is your host, Jack Young, and today I got one of my good friends, Travis Shaner, in with us. He's doing our Wednesday evening Bible study, and we just came off a stint of salmon fishing.
Yeah.
And old Brother Vineyard used to say, "Let the world go, you know where, I'm going fishing." And every once in a while, you take a break and go fishing. And sometimes you get more done because you got away.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
And it's like Peter, he quit the ministry. If you're going to quit the ministry and do something,
Go fishing.
Go fishing.
Amen
right?
to that.
Amen. So, you have those little stints of fishing in the middle, and it's really refreshing.
Oh yeah.
Why do you think fishing is refreshing and like a restart for your brain? Just kind of get you.
Honestly, man, and here's the thing, I'm sure you're going to have to agree with this one, especially as being in the ministry. Mm-hmm. No matter where we're at, I work a job, I work full-time hours there, I'm at the church, all those things. It's, you never disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
Never.
Mm-hmm.
You never disconnect from the ministry. And even my wife said, she's like, Travis, next time we go to New York, she's like, you've really got to quit, because everywhere we go, I end up preaching for my buddies or vice versa.
Yeah, you preached Sunday First Baptist Church, Black River,
And then now
you're preaching tonight, and you're on vacation.
And I'm on vacation.
Yeah.
But even her, she's like, you have to, and we agree, you got to disconnect somehow, and you need something. Now, like you and I, we both like to fish, we love to hunt. Mm-hmm. We need something that demands our attention.
Yes.
That's not a stress.
Yes. Yes.
When I'm out there, I'm not thinking about a divorce that's going on with people I know. I'm not thinking about all these other things. And you'll stand around and say, man, this is so, I got a picture on my phone from last year when we were up that little creek. I was sitting there, I was dying tired. And I'm sitting on the bank and I look back and I was like, man, it was a yellow maple, with all the yellow leaves on the maple, and the sun was coming out through it. And I don't have any pictures of my fish from last year. I got a picture of that maple tree sitting there just like, man, taking a breath.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to get away from the ministry in your mind. And so we took our week family vacation to Outer Banks, and man, it's beautiful. It was great. And usually I'll check my phone like once a day type thing. But I'll tell you something. Salmon fishing, my mind is more off of the ministry than I was during my week of vacation.
Yes.
And I think I know the reason why.
They will hurt
now, you and I, we've been friends for a long time. How many years have we been friends?
Man, I met you my very first year traveling with Brother Coral, and we just had our 22nd expo.
Okay. So 22 years.
Yeah, 21 or 22 years. Yeah, right there.
So we've been on a lot of fishing trips together. You were preaching for me up at First Baptist Church in Black River, and there was a fellow in our church got saved in our church who really loved fishing, and so, man, that was a win-win. Got saved, and he loved fishing, and he had a riverboat, that wooden riverboat. Remember that thing?
Yes.
So his name is
remember
John Palamount. Now, we went out on the lake, and that was a really funny story with Travis.
Are you really going to tell this story?
Yes. And so we're in the front seat, and John's getting his boat ready, and we're going to go out trout fishing, right? And he said, here, Travis, hold on to this. And he hands Travis a can of snuff. And Travis has like this look on his face. And I wish I didn't have a smartphone then. If I would have taken a picture of him and probably posted it to every social. But
you
but
would
it was
too, man. You would do that to me.
But that was very funny. But I was fishing one time with John on that riverboat, and it was in the Salmon River. It was in January, and there's ice and snow on the banks, and we're fishing for trout. We're fishing for steelies, and we're fishing for brown trout. And we were with this guy, Tom Adkins, and Tom is a fella that John just met out fishing. I mean, you make friends out fishing. I made a couple friends this week, as a matter of fact. And so Tom hooks up to this beautiful big rainbow trout, big steelhead, and this huge fish caught it back trolling through a hole. It's where you have this riverboat, and John would be on the oars, and he's rowing against the current, and those rapalas are out, and they're just shimmering in the water, and you're waiting for a trout to come up and hit that thing. So one of them got hit. Tom picked up the pole, set the hook, started playing this fish, and finally got off the boat. We netted it, pulled it into the boat. He sat down, in absolute ecstasy, and he was just overcome with emotion and overwhelmed. And, so the rest of the trip, he was just so excited about his beautiful fish.
Yeah, you don't have to.
And now he told us, and this explains why fishing, and this go for hunting as well, would help alleviate stress of the ministry, or be a nice little getaway. So he said he has a psychologist friend who asked him, said, "Tom, why do you like fishing so much?" He said, "Well, let me think about it and get back to you." And so he thought about it, got back to his psychologist friend. He said, "I tell you the reason why I like fishing so much." He said, "When I have a fish on the end of the line, there's only two things in the whole world at that moment: myself and a fish."
Yes.
And so, everything that you, all your failures from yesterday, or all the whatever remorse from yesterday, or whatever, burdens you had from yesterday, or the anxiety for tomorrow, that is gone.
Even if it's just for a split moment, you have complete relief from everything.
Yes, you are living right there in that moment.
Yep.
And the special thing about the salmon fishing, and so we have a world-class salmon run in the state of New York, and the state of New York stocks the salmon river full of salmon eggs. They go out to the lake. They live out there for 3 years. They get up to anywhere between 20 and 40 pounds, going to be about the biggest salmon that we get. And so they will have a salmon run in October. All these salmon will be coming up the river. And when you hook into a salmon, it's like hooking into a freight train.
Yes.
And
river rockets.
How many fish do you think we hooked into and lost this week?
I don't know. I know Doug said he hooked into over 30 and landed one.
Yes. Yeah.
So, I hooked into several. You hooked into a bunch. Your boy hooked into a bunch.
In the physicality of that, you're standing in a river, and then when you hook into them, man, you got to move with the salmon, or your line's
and you got to
break.
stay standing.
Yes, and you got to stay on your feet, and you're walking in the current. You're walking along rocks. Usually, someone's going down. Someone's getting baptized in the river, and then you have to have a good netter. You got to have someone, a good friend, to run down. And you're hollering, "Go down farther! He's down farther!"
I'm trying,
and it is a lot of work.
Yes, it is absolutely outrageous.
And so, a little day and a half getaway, man, and it was so much fun.
Oh yeah,
unbelievable amount of fun.
And like I love the way, but at that moment, you're right. I got none of my issues at home. None of my, not just that, but back home. None of the church, none of the work, none of the hospital, none of that is there for a few minutes.
Amen. So yeah. Yeah, so I think there's a principle there. I don't know. Not everybody has to go fishing, but it is, I think, important. If you're going to work hard, also you have to play hard. There's got to be moments in time where you have some sort of a mental Sabbath where you're involved with something else. I know Winston Churchill, in the middle of World War II, here he's keeping his country from being overrun as Prime Minister of England. He would go back to Chartwell, his home, and he would paint his pond, or he would paint pictures of his pond. Or I remember one time reading about how he was bricklaying a wall, and he would have a cigar in his mouth. He'd be bricklaying, and I was reading one time that he went and he took lunch, and the guys who were working for him, working with him in the administration, so look how crooked that wall is. We got to straighten that out before it gets back from lunch. And so they took apart his work, Winston's work, and they straightened it all out.
Yeah.
While he's gone from lunch, he came back from lunch and said, "Look at that, boys. Straight as an arrow." But Winston Churchill said that I can't leave the stress of being prime minister during war, but I can add something in that will help take my mind off for a moment in time, off of all the stresses.
Yeah, and people have to remember, whether minister or whatever it is, you've got to get that moment, you have to.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I'm not going to talk about this on air, but in the recent years, I am learning more and more and more about dealing with like your mental health and stuff like that, even as a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, man, you have to be able to take time and take the stress off and set it down. And I'm going to sound contradictory as a preacher in a minute. I love those ones. Man, I'm under a lot of stress. Just pray about it, brother.
Mm-hmm.
I did. And God's going to come through. She's still got cancer. They're still getting a divorce. Do you trust God? 100%. But that does not take the weight of a problem away.
Right.
I mean, I'm going to talk tonight. I may talk tonight about casting your cares on the Lord. Mm-hmm. And you know me, like for a long time, you knew me through evangelism. And I tell people, I've never doubted that God was going to take care of it. But he has made me sweat bullets a few times. And I trust him 110%, man. There's some miracles that's been going on in our church. On the way here, there was a miracle. Just absolutely mind-boggling. That's just how much God is involved in it. And honestly, anytime I wasn't down there fishing, wasn't in the middle of something, my mind has been on this issue, trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I'm on the way here, a random phone call that I would have never dreamed in a million years is taken care of.
Right. And you think that because you had an escape, I think there's a principle there in the Bible, in the fourth commandment, the command of the Sabbath. And Lord, Jesus is our rest. We've entered into his rest. I think that principle would apply for Sunday. However, I think that with pastors and people in ministry or people who are very, very busy on Sunday, you might be a layman and you have Sunday school class and you got a bus route and you got to count the offerings and all this stuff on Sunday. It might not be a mental rest for you.
Yeah, no, church is not mental rest for us.
No, it's not. And in fact, on Sunday nights, I am playing replay in my mind. I sleep great on Saturday. I sleep pretty good on Saturday night. Sunday night actually is like a replay of all the times I fumbled the football or whatever.
Oh yeah, that's 100%.
So it's not a day of rest, and so but there is a principle there in the Bible of Sabbath and being able to allow your mind to relax, and then even like if you're doing a sport, like I ran a half marathon last week.
God bless you.
Yeah, and so one of the things that you do in your programming is the week of your marathon, you have to let your body rest, and then you come back from that rest stronger than previous to that rest, and you'll be at your peak. So during my training, if I'm running 9-minute miles, I end up with a 152 for one of those, if you're wondering, 152 and change. So I'm running like 8:33 a mile during that marathon. It would have been, or his half marathon. No. It was faster than any point during my training, and it was because of the rest.
Yes.
And so when you allow your mind to relax and kind of get away from the busyness, you actually are going to be able to come back stronger and more fit. And again, I think it's that principle. You work hard, you better play hard.
Yeah, you have to be able to disconnect from work, no matter what the work is. Me and my wife, we're not successful at it yet, but we're trying. Saturday is not a day off for us.
Right.
It's visits, it's soul winning. But I'm trying Saturday about 2:30, 3 o'clock. If you're not going to be dead before that night's over, leave me alone.
Right.
Don't call me. The baby's on the way, all right? Will it be here tonight or by Monday?
Mm-hmm.
I want to because my wife is just as busy as I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying. I've not been successful yet. I'm still that one that'll answer the phone and run. But yeah, everything, if you fight for something, you got to fight as hard as you can. But sometimes you just got to sit down. Mm-hmm. It's just how it is, regardless of what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've seen that, again, back to Brother Vineyard, he was probably, one of the hardest working guys that I have known. He worked for Jerry Falwell, ran Jerry Falwell's ministry, and then Jack Hiles stolen from Jerry Falwell, come work for him and headed up that big ministry and really got that thing orchestrated and set there, First Baptist Church in Hammond, 200-plus buses on the church bus route. And he was only there for like 3 years, but I bet he put about 20 years of work in those 3 years.
Oh, yeah.
And then, down in Oklahoma. Now, Jack Hiles used to have this policy. I don't know if you remember him saying this, but that he says, people say you can go on vacation, you go to another church. He says, but if you're working, you're on vacation, you don't go to another place to work. He says, so my employees, they don't take vacation from our church; they're at our church. And Brother Hiles used to have a policy, and he changed it in his later years, where he never took a vacation.
Yeah.
Now, when Brother Vineyard was working for Jack Hiles, and I've heard him say this from the pulpit several times, he said, and I told Brother Hiles, I said, Brother Hiles, I'm pretty sure I can get another job. He said, but I don't think I can get another Mrs. Vineyard or a Paul or a Tom.
Exactly.
And, and when he was there in Oklahoma, he was a very serious fisherman. He had a couple boats. I think Russell Anderson gave him one.
I didn't realize that.
I had been on fishing trips, and my brother had been on more fishing trips with him than myself, but he would go to Canada from Oklahoma City all the way up to Canada, like 24-hour drive, and they'd spend a week up there in Rufus Lake, and then they also once a year would go down to Guerrero, Mexico, and that 10-pound bass up there, that was from Brother Vineyard's fishing trip to Guerrero, Mexico, down there fishing.
That's amazing.
And so he worked hard.
He played hard.
He played hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to.
So there's those counterbalance, and life is a balancing act.
Yes.
Hey, so how we getting our mind off the ministry next year?
Next year?
Yeah, next year, 2024.
I am seriously hoping we're dragging moose meat out somewhere in Alaska.
So the plan is, on paper, we're going where in Alaska?
We'll be flying into, I think it is St. Mary's, Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be spending a night or whatever there, and then we'll be heading out to a slough that's some 50 miles out of town. And from there, I don't really know exactly how this works, but we're going to make a base camp, and we'll hunt the slough's edges and set up and call. So, yeah, that's how that's going to go. I seen pictures this year where there's 3 of them that went up, and they all 3 killed moose. The one guy killed probably a 60, man. He was a beast of a moose. At least that's what it looked like in the picture. Mm-hmm. My wife's like, that's too big to fit in our house. I said, I'll figure it out. If I shoot something that.
You might have to get another house to fit your moose trophy.
No, well, I'll just have an 8-inch pedestal and let it sit on the ground. It's coming in the house.
Yeah, that thing's going to be massive. Yeah, and that's another thing that's a lot of fun is being out in the woods hunting. And when we're up in Alaska, now here's the thing with hunting too. It's like, a lot of people think it's terrible to kill Bambi. Let me tell you something about Bambi. Bambi's getting eaten.
One way or another.
One way or another. Deer, when they get old, they don't go to the nursing home. The wolves catch up to them. The coyotes catch up to them. The predators get them, and they get eaten.
Yeah.
And the neat thing about hunting, you got the prey and the predator. So you're hunting a deer, and a deer walks in. Again, you have that sensation of there's only 2 things in the world, yourself and that deer. Now, when you're in a place like Alaska, there's stuff when we're up there that's going to try to figure out how to eat us.
They could, yes.
So we got to be vigilant up there. We can't be daydreaming about all our past problems or our future problems, man. We got to be in the moment.
I tell people when I hunt, whether it's deer or whatever it is, I'm hunting for a 30-second window.
Yeah.
I don't need the entire year to go 100% correct. I need to get that 30 seconds to work. If that 30 seconds works, that's all. The whole hunt has been focused on a 30-second time frame.
Yeah.
When that happens, that's all that matters. Is that at that moment.
Yeah. Don't you think there's something, let's say, primal about guys going out for game?
I don't know about primal would be the correct word.
Like you think like our ancestors for thousands of years sat around a campfire at night plotting how that they are going to catch the next day's food. It's funny being on the river, for instance, and how guys who you never knew, never met in your life,
Yeah.
you form a quick bond with them. I mean, I got 2 guys' phone numbers from New Jersey.
Like that.
The last hole that we found, the salmon hole, we were actually able to land them because the water was a little bit quieter.
Yeah.
And we weren't fighting them in the rapids. That was a tip by a guy named Matt from New Jersey.
Oh, yeah. I think part of that, it's a camaraderie. And there's all different levels of that, man. I mean, different ways you do things. And for the most part, not all of them, there are some guys that, especially on like I'm on the Salmon River Facebook page and a few others. Don't look me up because I tend to get smart with people. It happens. There's always those ones that are the high and mighties, but then there's the most of us that are just, we're gathered around enjoying something. Mm-hmm. And, like we were talking about, when you hook that fish, all that goes away. With sportsmen, that's the common denominator from every background, every livelihood, every economic status in the community. I've been standing beside guys that have $1,000 set of waders and $1,000 fly rod, and they're driving a $120,000 truck. And on the other side of me is a guy that he showed up with a pair of rubber boots and a catfish rod.
Yeah. It was funny because there was a fella, and his name's Hunter, and I met him Monday evening, and he was very helpful around his hole. He fishes there all of salmon season. He comes up from New Jersey and stays, and him and his buddies, they're like fishing salt water at a certain time of year, fishing all around the country. And this guy he looks like Charlie Manson, just a short little dude, little wiry dude. He's got the beard. He's got the scruffy hair. Long hair.
Yeah.
And so helpful. And he was hooking up and handing the poles 2 different times. He handed his pole to my son, Timmy. Say, here, Timmy, take this. And teaching him how to fight it. And there's an informational sharing, too. There's that bonding. And then guys helping each other out. Bring in the game.
Yeah. It's just... This is going to sound terrible. I wish Christians were like that.
Right. And that's what I was just going to caveat to.
I do, man.
Is that, we're supposed to be fishers of men and think, man, if we, it's funny because there's a fellow by the name of Larry Kraft, and he's one of our missionaries here. We support him. He goes all over the country to different big events, whether it's the bikers rally there in Idaho or wherever that is, and he'll go down to, it goes down to Mardi Gras, goes all over the place and preaches to crowds. Him and I were at the state fair in Syracuse, and we were working the sewing booth. And then there was a guy, Matt Smith, who, Matt is so good at getting people to come and sit right next to him back in the booth, and he gets into the Romans Road. And Larry and I had been there for a couple hours. Matt walks up, and about the second person he talks to is sitting back there with him, and he's opening up the Bible and getting into the gospel with him. And then, Larry and I had nobody back there, in the last 2 hours. Matt gets up there again. It's like the second one. And then by the third one, we're like, okay, we're going to be watching what Matt's doing.
Yeah.
And, there was that technique. We followed his technique, and, I've used part of Matt's technique ever since that day.
I believe it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, Christians, God love us. Oh, there's so much that could be said about us that's not good, especially pastors, ministry workers. It's, I don't want to get off into that too much. But
well, I think that
we're too political in everything that we do, and whatever happens, we talk a good game about wanting to help people. But like I'm gonna take my first year here. I'm late 30s.
You're good.
I'm late 30s. You and Doug brought me up. I come up to the Salmon River. I had that buddy of mine with me, Joey, and Doug hooks a fish and hands me the rod. I'm a 30-some-odd-year-old man. I've been fishing my whole life, whole 9 yards. But Doug took the time to help me figure it out and get I'm not a master of it yet, but I can light an M80. But but he helped me get started beyond just you flip it out there and do this. You can do this.
Yeah.
No, he's like, no, here, this is how this is going to work. And you both have been very good about that. You still should have told me about the felt on my boots. I'm still bitter. But Christians, we have this idea. We'll talk about soul winning. We'll talk about Bible reading. We'll talk about those things. And we all have our own little way that we do it. And I'm not saying any of it's wrong. As long as you're reading your Bible, praying, walking with God, telling people about Christ, I am 100% for it. But why can't we, especially as ministry leaders, take time to grab somebody and go, let me show here. This is exactly how you do it. This is what I do. Model this idea.
Information sharing, technique sharing, being a help. One of the reasons why I do this podcast is because, I had the privilege of growing up in a pastor's home, and we'd have in all sorts of very interesting people, godly people who have been successful in ministry. And I got to sit there, and it's funny, I must be weird or whatever, but even as a kid, I'd love to sit and listen to the conversations between my father and whatever guest preacher in our home while they're having dinner or while he's picking them up from the airport or whatever. Yeah. And then when I became a pastor, I had the same privilege of, I'm interested in a lot of different things. So whoever I have in, I can ask them different particular questions on how do you do this? What do you think about this? What are the influences on your life? And have these amazing conversations where they're sharing information and technique with me. And so when these, podcasts started getting popular, I'd love that, listen to that conversation, getting the information. I thought, man, I need to start a podcast. So 2020 was a perfect opportunity, but a time to, share tips, techniques, whatever, and try to be that help and that blessing, a network of information and helps for people.
I will say something, even though right along with what I was saying, what you just said is a huge thing. I was going to say us young guys, but we're not the young ones anymore, Jack.
That's crazy.
Yes, there's a lot of, we don't share, we don't talk. Everybody, I keep trying to follow it around. We all think we know it all.
Yeah.
We all do. Nobody wants to go and ask somebody, hey, how'd you do that? The guys I run with. I'm kind of archaic in a lot of things I do. But I got a phone call from a guy talking about a way to run a Facebook ad and a way to do this. Because we've tried. I'm like, man, I've tried the Facebook ads. They're like, no, use this, do it this way. Yeah. And I said, all right. I said, we'll try it.
Yeah.
Most of us, either the old guys don't want to talk to us because we don't do it the way they did it. And I'm sorry, we don't have a printing press in the basement anymore, right. Printing out black and white tracks.
Right.
Or we have guys that don't want to use anything that's new, or the new guys don't want to ask. Everybody, right. We all think we know it all. Mm-hmm. And I do like that, what you said, because I always try to ask questions. I love talking to the guys, whether they're younger than I am or older than I am.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, me too. Yeah, no, I'm fascinated by both young and old. It's same thing back on the river fishing. If I'm standing next to you and you're hooking up,
I'm asking,
and I'm not, I am going to humble myself and say, "Hey, excuse me, what kind of what pound test are you using? What kind of hook you got on? How much weight? How much weight do you have on your pole?" And I've never one time ever been turned down by anybody.
No.
When I humbly asked them for that information.
Yeah. I got a guy in mind. I'm not going to say who he is on air. He knows everything. He knows everything. Just ask him. Mm-hmm. He knows everything about everything. And I'm looking at him going, and he's like, well, if you'll just do this, your church will grow. And I love the guy. Yeah, I love him to death. But I'm looking at him going, you're built yours from about 160 to about 80. Mm-hmm. Maybe. And I'm not going to change my Bible. I'm not going to change my music. I'm not going to stop soul winning. I'm not going to do any of that. Mm-hmm. I'm going to do what we have always done as the Bible commands me. Period. But that does not mean I can't look at a guy like you that's 25, 30 years younger than that other guy and go, all right, I know you're doctrinally right. I know you're sound on your Bible, and I know you're sound in all the areas that are massively important. What are you doing different than me?
Right.
I,
And there's people out there, and well, everybody knows something that you do not know yourself, and pretty much everybody is doing something better in their life than you're doing better in your life. All men have something that you can. Most all men has something that they can teach you.
yes.
Of course, everybody's at least a bad example, but yeah, and so education, learning, information sharing,
And
asking.
asking, man. I think honestly that was a huge point when you
Who
said that.
who were who are some of your people in your life that took time to teach and train you?
Oh, in the ministry,
Mm-hmm.
I got a handful. When I first got in church, man, I was an annoyance to most people. Nobody really wanted to give me a shot at anything. They wouldn't even. First church I ever went to, they wouldn't even let me usher. I kid you not. They had a position for an usher, and I remember they had I think it was orange or red coats or something like that. And I was like, man, I was a brand new Christian. I'd been in church about a year and a half. I was like, man, I wanted to usher so bad.
Tell us a little bit about your background. You were raised Orthodox heathen.
Yeah, I tell you about Orthodox heathen. Brief.
You grew up out of church.
Yeah, I didn't. Wasn't in church at all.
Your household wasn't a traditional 1950s Ward and June Cleaver household, would you say?
All right, let me just say it then. I grew up in a household. My dad left when I was a kid. He didn't just run off. He went off and worked. My mom got real bad sick. My brothers, all of them moved off. My sister got married when she was 16. I ended up leaving home about 14, but when it comes to the alcohol and the drugs and things like that, I started smoking cigarettes. By the time I started smoking when I was 8, before I was 9, I was a pack and a half a day. Between 8 and 9 years old, I became a pothead. By the time I was 10, I had been experimenting with, I was not even experimenting, I was high, I was smoking crack and snorting coke on the regular basis. I was starting to smoke some meth and stuff like that. I was 10, 11 years old.
Yeah.
When I was 13, I found out that I could stick myself with a needle and became a full-blown junkie on my 13th birthday. So,
so you weren't raised in a Christian home, is what you're saying?
No, not at all.
Right. That's so true.
So yeah, that's a little bit about my background. I left Arkansas when I was 14 and moved to Colorado Springs. As I tell everybody, the state of Arkansas had extended to me an invitation to stay at one of their state-ran recreation facilities.
Yeah.
Only catch is you can't leave.
Right.
So I felt led of the spirit to
Leave
get
the
out,
state.
to leave the state of Arkansas. So I hightailed it to Colorado, where my brother was in college at Colorado Baptist College under Dean Miller. And I show up. I'm bald as a bat now, but I had my hair hung down to the middle of my chest. I showed up with Marlboros, at that time, probably Camel Wides in my shirt sleeve, a can of Bugler, and I was DTing from being high when I showed up at my brother's house on the bus. And I left home at 14. I was up there a few years, went back home to Arkansas, paid my debt to society, messed up a little bit, messed up for a couple of years. But yeah, I went up there, and that's where I started going to church. I did not get a jailhouse religion. I did not go up there and be like, God, if you'll keep me from going to prison, I'll do anything.
I'll go to church.
Yeah, that wasn't what I did.
Yeah.
I went up there because I'd got saved when I was a year or two before that. Mm-hmm. My brother led me to Christ. So I moved up there, running from the law, started going to church. And there was my brother was a huge influence on my life then. But probably one of the men, I've always been drawn to strong leaders. I can't stand a weak leader. Mm-hmm. I just can't. Mm-hmm. And so Dean Miller was my pastor. Dean Miller Sr. was my pastor. That's the church I first met Brother Hiles. Mm-hmm. But there was a man who was a Sunday school teacher. Jack, they wouldn't even let me go to the youth department. I was 14, 15 years old. They said he's too worldly.
Yeah, sure.
So they shipped me off to the singles Sunday school class at 14, 15 years old. And I wasn't scared of them either. I'd already been in barroom fights.
Yeah, you were intimidating them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, there was a man there he was the single Sunday school teacher by the name of Randy Hall. And he was a good man, solid man, very no nonsense. Reminds you a lot of a Brother Coral type guy. And man, I ended up living with him for a little while, whole 9 yards. So Randy Hall had a huge, huge influence on my life. Then my brother took a church out in Ohio, and one thing led to another. I spent some time at House Anderson. Sounds like I went to prison. I spent time at House Anderson.
Did some time.
It's close.
Did some time there.
Yeah, it's close. Moved out there. My brother's father-in-law was a member of the church, and another one that was just a super strong man, just kind of gruff, but very strong, very disciplined. And honestly, I'd say both of these men, I'll get to that in a second, but I was out there with brother. His name was Frank Bell, and Frank Bell had a huge impact on my life. Then I got connected with, I'd known Brother Coral, but I got connected with him. I wanted to go into evangelism, and I moved up there. And I worked for Brother Coral. So those are probably the men that had the biggest impact on me. And I'm going to say something. I just, to a lot of the listeners out there, especially the men, none of these guys were gravitated toward me. None of them.
So you were the one that
allowed me to get close to them.
And they invested their lives into you.
Because I was the one, you couldn't run me off. I was too stinking mean and hard-headed. But these men they gave me an opportunity for me to be part of their life. You know, you go to church and things like that, and most guys would not let me around when Brother Hall when he met me. Mm-hmm. I'm 14, 15 years old. I'm smoking. I'm drinking. I'm a drug addict. I'm not scared to fist fight. I've been shot at, whole 9 yards. And I seen this guy. I was like, man, he's strong, but he's a Christian. I had no idea. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to get close to him. Mm-hmm. And again, like I said, where I was supposed to be in the youth department, they wouldn't let me close.
Yeah, and I don't know about Brother Hall, but I know Brother Coral when he got saved. I mean, he was a barroom bouncer and slinging dope and everything else. Yeah,
tough all these guys kind of, and that's probably one of the things that they all kind of had that background. Mm-hmm. So they allowed me because everybody needs somebody, and it all kind of breaks down to like this idea. I remember when I was working for Brother Coral, the year I traveled with you. Yeah, the year I traveled with, I met you. Okay. 20 some odd years ago. Or actually it was a couple years later. I went up and I'd moved up there to Pennsylvania, and it was deer season. I'm canning meat with Brother Coral. And I looked at him. Jack, you remember when he came to Hiles Anderson, you'd be an hour getting your Bible signed.
Yeah.
I looked at him. I said, Doc, why me? Nobody wants me. I said, why'd you give me, why am I here? Well, everybody deserves a chance. And that has stuck with me. And all of those men, not even a chance for them to love me.
Yeah.
They gave me a chance to love them.
I'll tell you tell me if I'm right. I guess, I'll just say that this is, Brother Coral was saying that Joe Boyd, and now he was Joe Boyd's preacher boy, similar circumstances, from a rough background, and Brother Coral's like 100% in on anything. So he was working for the devil 100%. And he got saved. Now he's working for God 100%.
Exactly.
Joe Boyd, evangelist Joe Boyd, took him under his wing. And these guys, these evangelists then, Joe Boyd had, I don't know, at one time, I don't know how many preacher boys he had traveling with him, but like 15 or something like that. He had a bunch of preacher boys that he'd have travel with him, particularly in the summer, and help him in all his evangelism. Well, Dennis Coral traveled with him, and it was like his right-hand young man.
Yeah.
And Brother Coral was telling me that they were at a big preachers conference meeting.
I know this story.
Okay, yeah, so I'm accurate. So a bunch of the big shots said, "Hey, why don't you?" To Brother Boyd, "Hey, why don't you go to lunch with us? Leave Dennis here, and come to lunch with us."
Yeah.
He said, "No, I don't want to."
Yeah.
And he took Dennis to lunch.
Yeah, I've heard that story 100 times. Brother Coral tells it. He said, "Man, Brother Coral never named the name of the preachers, but these guys showed up and did exactly what you said. They're like, hey, come on." And Brother Boyd was like, "Oh, I got this preacher boy." And Brother Coral told me, he said he was fishing for an invitation for me.
Yeah,
and he said, he finally turns out, "Oh, fellas, I got plenty to do." And he turned around and said, "Come on, let's go get lunch."
Yeah,
Brother Coral, those guys were never big shots.
Yeah. And Brother Coral invested in you. And the funny thing is, when you were in evangelism, you took Brother Coral's training to a T. I mean, it was you were your own guy, you were your own personality, but everything that Brother Coral taught you, you did it, and you did a really good job when you came into any church because he had taken time to mentor you and to teach you for everything from sermon preparation to how to handle invitation, the whole 9 yards.
Somebody took a chance on me.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. If you look at Brother Coral and all the preacher boys had, not all of them work. It's like any Bible college. You lose a huge majority of them.
Well, that is the ministry.
Yeah.
And so you are going to get burned.
But keep trying.
Yeah, and you keep on. And, don't worry. People, you will invest. If you're in the ministry, you should be investing in people. You will invest in people. And sometimes the people that you most self-sacrificially invest in are going to be the ones to be your biggest enemies. And to turn around and hate you. I was reading something about Abraham Lincoln. And one of his generals had a scathing comment about Abraham Lincoln. And it was reported back to Abraham Lincoln saying that, that so-and-so is saying about you, they're saying this. And Abraham Lincoln said, that's very interesting. I don't ever remember doing something kind for him. Ouch. And, most people who burn you are real bad are going to be the people that you have invested your personal time in. But you are going to have some wins.
Yeah. One win is worth 100 losses.
Right. And so, if you didn't have, like, Brother Coral's one that I know, one of your mentors, like if he had invested his life, a part of his life into you, Travis Shaner would not be who he is today.
No.
Bottom line.
No. And also, I'll say this because of Brother Coral. Most of my friends are because of him.
Yeah.
I met you.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, I got friends for decades now.
Right.
And I tell people I have a friends list that's above my pay grade.
So first time I ever heard Travis preach.
Man, are you going to do nothing but tell stories? Come on.
Was at a nursing home. And we had a nursing home ministry on a Sunday afternoon. Brother Coral preached some more in the service. We went over the nursing home ministry, and Travis preached his great God so loved Jack Hyles sermon.
I stole that sermon from Brother Hyles. I didn't know what I was doing. Jack, that was also that you took me to Starbucks. I'm like, I don't know what to order. You're like, I'm getting a coffee. I'm like, He's like, I'm just getting a coffee. I'm like, I'd never been in a Starbucks before.
Yeah.
That hillbilly you met back then, man. You know what Sheetz are, Al? You know what a Sheetz is? The gas station.
Yeah, pizza. Yeah. Or
They're
no,
like
gas station. Yeah.
The gas
yeah,
station. I remember that the year I traveled that you met me, I went into a Sheetz at Bedford, Pennsylvania. And I walked in. I was going to get something to eat. I'm with Brother Corey. He's like, yeah, y'all go get something to eat. I walked in and was like, and I walked back out. He's like, you going to get anything? I'm like, no, I'm not really hungry because it was touch screen and I didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And I was 23 years old.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to run one.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that funny? Took a hillbilly and
I'm still a
trained
hillbilly,
him,
though.
And now you got a sophisticated hillbilly. That's what you got. That's funny. Hey, so what are you preaching on tonight? Don't know yet. There's something on prayer, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got an idea for our audience, those who are listening. What we do with our missions conference is, our missions conference is every other year. And then that's what we've been doing. And I think we'll probably continue to do so. Next year in October will be our women's conference, but October is always our missions month. So I will take a month to preach on missions next year. And I like that because it fine-tunes my ideas on missions, my theology on missions. I'll preach fresh mission sermon for a whole month and teach it myself. Because a lot of times we hire a hired gun from without, and us pastors ourselves are not growing in the area of what missions is, what biblical missions look like, why you should give to missions, all this stuff. But this year is our missions conference, and one of the things we're doing for our missions conference is a 24-hour prayer chain. And so we have 8 o'clock Friday morning. we're going to start a 24-hour prayer chain. It's going to go at 8 o'clock Saturday morning. And people signed up for 15-minute time slots. And so what we did to help people pray, we had a table set up Sunday. I was back there. I said, I confess, people, I'm going to high pressure you into prayer. I want to apologize before time. And I said, praying for 15 minutes is tough. Praying for missionaries for 15, yeah. And it was funny because I had people, I was talking about how hard it is to pray for 15 minutes. And I said, those of you are shaking your heads up and down, you've actually tried to do it. Those of you are not shaking your heads up and down have never tried to pray for 15 minutes. So what we did is we had out there a prayer packet. So you sign up for the prayer chain and pick up your prayer packet. And what we have in our prayer packet is names and pictures of all of our missionaries in like a bulletin so they can pray over the missionaries. And then we have another bulletin inside of the mission prayer guide that has the missionaries that are coming for our prayer conference, including our speaker. And then included with that, on that bulletin, is 14 things to pray for your missionaries with scripture references.
Okay.
So sign up for your prayer, sign up for the prayer chain, and pick up your prayer packet. And so everybody coming out of the auditorium Sunday, I'm hitting them up. Hey, did you sign up for the prayer chain? Sign up for the prayer chain, get your prayer packet. And so
used car salesman.
Oh yeah. So it was high pressure, unapologetically, and so we got rid of a lot of prayer packets for our missions conference, and I thought it was a pretty neat thing. And we got a bunch of people signed up.
That's awesome
for praying, and that's kind of a thing that we're going to kick our conference off with. I mean, that's the first event, is a 24-hour prayer chain.
Yeah.
We're not meeting together for a prayer meeting, but we're all meeting together in the heavenlies, so to speak.
That's awesome, man.
And
That's
we're going to pray for missions
amazing.
For 24 hours, so that's going on.
That's awesome. I'm going to share some things that's been going on. Some huge tonight at church. So if you're watching the podcast, come back and watch the sermon, because I'm not going to tell it now and at church. I can't get through all of it.
Yeah.
There's some huge answers to prayer. So, yeah.
Okay. Good, man. I'm looking forward to it. So you can go on Lighthouse Bible Baptist Church on our YouTube channel, or you can find us in sermon audio and listen to the Sermon on Prayer by Brother Travis. Good preacher. Our people enjoy him. And then also I want to announce that on the 27th of this month at Lighthouse Bible Baptist Church, our church here, we are having a New York Baptist for Biblical Values rally, and we're going to have Dr. David Gibbs and Dr. Johnny Pope preaching.
Awesome.
Yeah, we got two heavyweights coming, both the same night. So it's going to be on a Friday, awesome. October 27th. So I want to invite all of our audience to that. And if you're not able to be here physically, you can tune into our live stream. But that'll all be up there, and I hope you can come for that. And it's my father's ministry, and he's having a big rally here, and then also he's having a rally at Lighthouse Baptist Church. I don't know where that's at, but it's out in Buffalo. Man, I can't remember the name of the town that they're in. But that'll be on here shortly. I think tomorrow we're going to do a podcast with him.
I really wish he wasn't here tonight.
Yeah,
he makes me nervous.
Yeah. That's funny. The old man. Yeah, that'll be good. I got to preach with him in the audience a lot of times. It's different having.
Yeah, practice.
It's different.
I'm that hillbilly preacher boy that your dad remembers. If he remembers,
he'll get a kick out of you. Well, since it's not his church, he'll just laugh if you.
If I say something stupid again,
you're like, that's Jack will have to deal with that later. That's another thing. That's funny. Hey, well, thanks for being on, man.
Man,
appreciate you. Appreciate your
pleasure.
Friendship.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching or listening to the Pastoral Thoughts podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Please reach out to us at pastorthoughtsmail@gmail.com. Also, if you want to check out more about our ministry here, you can visit pastorjack.org. I do have a blog that I do write. I'd love to have you as one of my subscribers there. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for listening. God bless you.